NextOcean's eighth webinar in our series. This is called Exploring NextOcean's User-Driven Successes. And so today we're going to start off with Nuno Grosso talking about our experience with alpha users, and then followed by some insights from our hackathons that we've held recently. And then Peter Miller will be talking about their interactions with beta users. So Nuno's been working at Deimos as a senior project engineer for the past 10 years. During this time, he's focused on developing Earth observation applications and data exploitation platforms. Nuno's contributed to several coastal and maritime-related projects such as eShape and the European Space Agency's Atlantic Regional Initiative for Offshore Wind Energy Applications. Currently, Nuno is actually the technical coordinator of NextOcean, and in our webinar today, he's going to provide valuable insights into how our alpha users have played a crucial role in enhancing NextOcean services. So, Nuno, I'd like to hand over to you, if that's okay.
In the first presentation, into what we defined as alpha users of NextOcean, and go over a bit the work that they've developed and the outcomes, the main outcomes that they've worked on within the scope of NextOcean. So I'll first provide just a brief overview of NextOcean for all of you that are not aware already of NextOcean. It's really brief, it's 2 slides. Then talk a bit overall about the role of alpha users, and then successful outcomes that came from engaging with these alpha users and having them on board since the beginning of the project. So NextOcean is a H2020 project that was financed back in 2021, I think. It has 11 partners covering R&D, public authorities, non-profit and commercial entities, 7 different countries: Portugal, Spain, UK, France, Italy, Greece, Norway. So important countries in terms of their coastal and marine areas. The timeline, so the project started from in May 2021 and it will go on until June 2024. So in 2 months as a project, it will end. It will continue as a commercial venture, and that's what we are working on right now. And it's been 100% co-created with all stakeholders. I think Peter's presentation will talk a bit more about different engagement events that we had with those users. So we aim to develop a platform to provide a single access point to innovative online commercial services for sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, aiming at the efficiency and quality of fisheries and aquaculture operations, improving those with EO data, monitoring environmental quality, ensuring sustainable trade and eco-labeling, being able to better trace fisheries and aquaculture operations so we can assure that the consumer is informed of the different steps towards to provide them with the species that they are purchasing. And we have more information available to you on the project website. So this is just a brief overview of the partners within NextOcean. So we have them just coordinating, we have PML, we have Air Center, the Maritime, Portuguese Maritime Authority, CLS, Colab Plus Atlantic. So different number of institutions across these different countries that represent these different sectors that I mentioned in my previous slide. Also to provide you with an overview of the services, they encompass 6 different services. One for fisheries monitoring and surveillance, for automated vessel monitoring using radar and optical data with analysis for illegal fishing. Then you have characterization of fishing areas that identifies potential fishing zones based on biophysical parameters. Fishing activity indicators, where IS data is aggregated to provide you with an overview of fishing activities within a specific area of interest and time of interest. This can be provided disaggregated per vessel or aggregated in maps, what we call the fishing footprint. There's site risk assessment, where we take a look at marine pollution, things like oil spills that can affect aquacultures, and weather and ocean parameters that can affect aquaculture operations. Fish farm impacts, we're looking at water quality and impact on the environment. We have services related with drift simulation that can provide information to aquaculture managers if a particular pollution episode can affect the agriculture, for instance. And so in the forecast mode, it can give you an idea of how your aquacultures can be affected. And the monitoring of aquaculture structures, where you have detections from satellite radars and from optical data of those aquaculture structures. So all of these services are available in the NextOcean online store. That's available on that URL. This is a brief screen capture of that online store. We covered that in previous webinar, so feel free to go to the YouTube channel that you'll find in the or to the videos that you'll find in the project website, where you have more information on what was provided there. So coming to the main subject of my presentation, my first presentation, sorry, there was a mistake there. Role of alpha users. Alpha users are representatives of the target markets of the NextOcean services that are part of the consortium. So these entities that you'll see represented below in the bottom part of my slide are part of the project consortium, and therefore from the beginning have tested the services, and then additionally they've tested also the online store, provided feedback to drive their evolution, disseminated them to their network, and that are potential champion customers. This does not apply to all of them, but some of them are potential champion customers. So we have different entities that are representative of different target markets that in our in the concept that we have of NextOcean as a midstream service provider to downstream entities, we've segmented this into research centers, public institutions, downstream service providers, and potentially, of course, fisheries and aquaculture companies that have a sufficient dimension to really internalize the information being given by NextOcean into their operations. So these alpha users are representing some of these sectors, or are providing us with contacts within those different sectors. So I'll go a bit over them, and I'll start with SINTEF. So we have two entities within SINTEF, one more devoted to aquaculture, and another more devoted to fisheries, SINTEF Ocean and SINTEF North. There are research centers, and they have an interest across the board for all aquaculture and fisheries services. During the 3 years of project, they, due to their knowledge of the technical service requirements in the different areas, since they're a research center that have been involved in this type of EO-based services for a long, long time, they contributed to their evolution by providing additional requirements that help them, that help those services evolve, not only the services, but also at some point the online store. Also, they engaged user network in a highly demanding Norwegian market, which is more exposed to this type of services and therefore has a higher expectations, and being exposed to this service allowed us also to be more criterious about the way we evolve the services, the way we deliver those services, and help us evolve the services according to the requirements of this highly demanding Norwegian market. We have a testimonial from CITEF, where they say that they've been engaged in testing and outreaching to potential users, and they see the potential of NextOcean services in not only to those user networks that I mentioned, but also in specific to what's now being a major development within the European Space Agency and the European Commission, the digital twins of the ocean, that are represented here by 2 projects that are ongoing, Edito and Iliad, and they see the benefit of incorporating NextOcean services into those digital twins of the ocean as a complementary data source. This has also been one of the main inputs of SINTEF within the project, to make that link between what NextOcean provides and what Iliad and Edito are looking for as to complement and to be able to provide a better digital twin of the ocean. So we pass on then to the second alpha user, CoLab Plus Atlantic, which is a research center, but it's also part representative of the industry in aquaculture and fisheries, since they encompass different institutions that are not only research centers, but also aquaculture farms, different cooperatives. So different institutions within the industry of aquaculture and fisheries are within the CoLab. So they're a collaborative laboratory in Portugal. And given their transversal scope, they're interested also in all aquaculture and fishery services. And of course, their knowledge of service requirements due to the variety of people that have engaged within Collab with different in different thematic areas that encompass the different NextOcean services. They contributed to their evolution, of course. They provided requirements to the evolution of the services and the online store with a greater focus in the aquaculture one, but also moving towards the fisheries. And it disseminated the services within the stakeholder network in the Portuguese and other linked markets. In linked markets, we're talking mostly towards Portuguese-speaking countries that are very much engaged with Collab. So Brazil and other African countries that are engaged with Collab were linked to NextOcean due to the presence of Collab in the project. So this has been their major contribution. Then another Portuguese institution that has a similar scope. It's also a research center, but also a connector of the different stakeholders around the Atlantic, the Air Center that's based in Açores. And it has many years now of engaging with different stakeholders within that area of the Atlantic. They were indeed interested in all aquaculture and testing all aquaculture and fishery services, and disseminated the services to their Atlantic stakeholder network. And not only the Portuguese market has been a great emphasis in their context, but also developing countries around the Atlantic that can look at EU as a viable alternative, a cheaper alternative to monitor certain aspects of aquaculture and fisheries in their operations. So this has been the main focus of the Air Center, looking into the Portuguese market because they are based in Portugal and also into these developing countries. And as other alpha users before them, they also provided feedback to the evolution of the store, the online store, at some point during the alpha project. Finally, we have two more. The Portuguese National Authority, which is a national public institution and authority. So this represents a bit the public sector, which was one of the target markets of NextOcean services. And they were mainly looking at one specific service that they were mostly interested on, the fisheries monitoring and surveillance, looking into the automated vessel detection and the capabilities that would give them to better monitor their the Portuguese exclusive economic zones that are responsible for basically not the entire, yes, I think probably the entirety of that. And they provided in the months that they've been engaged with the project, key requirements in terms of spatial resolution of the service. So they came with with the requirements for the service to provide results at a greater resolution that could allow them to have more information on the vessel being detected. The information contact, how can we improve that information contact? And there's been a great deal of focus on the service delivery security, so the capability to provide that service in a way that the Portuguese Maritime Authority could indeed procure that service in a secure way based on what they have as their requirements for security. So this is key for us to understand a bit what could be the requirements coming from other authorities within the European Commission, within the European Union, and could be indeed they were key also to open up that market. And of course, also for the requirements in terms of your services, public procurement. So how the public institutions procure this type of services, what are their requirements for those procurements, and how can NextOcean adapt to that to deliver the services to those institutions that indeed are obliged to have a public procurement procedure in order to be able to procure these services. So this has been the main contributions coming from the Portuguese Maritime Authority. Then finally, the I2S, which is a Greek aquaculture downstream service provider. They've been mostly focused, of course, in aquaculture services. And in I2S, due to their commercial nature, which was a bit different from other alpha users that are more research-oriented or technical oriented or even operational, but in a public scope, public institution scope, they in the case of I2S, they tested the services with with different clients in different areas, Europe, Middle East. And they're currently defining a roadmap for integration of this NextOcean services in their system, in their portfolio, and in their system. So how can they use the NextOcean services to enrich their portfolio and deliver those services with added value to their clients? So different new services are being devised by I2S to include the NextOcean information in there. So this has been a bit the scope, the more commercially oriented scope of what I2S brought to the project within those 3 years. So what are the next steps? Overall as a consortium, but with a special focus on alpha users. So as a consortium, we need to define commercial agreements between different NextOcean partners to set terms on how to deliver these services after the project. So the project ends into a month, and we need to understand how this will continue moving forward. With the alpha users that referred that they were interested, we are defining memorandums of understanding to define terms in which they might acquire the services after the project end. And we are concluding the contacts with beta users that were engaged by alpha users, and those will be referred by the presentation by Peter Miller, to identify further sales leads. So these are the main actions within those that include not only the alpha users, but all the entire NextOcean consortium. And this is where our main efforts have been focused on. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll move on to the second presentation. This will be by Peter Miller, and he's a principal Earth observation scientist at Plymouth Marine Laboratory in the UK. Peter's research focuses on developing novel technologies for automated detection of oceanic fronts and harmful algal blooms using Earth observation data. And these have applications in physical oceanography, fisheries management, and marine megafauna conservation. During NextOcean, Peter's led the co-development of the NextOcean services and coordinated interactions with beta users. So today he's going to share us valuable insights gained from the beta users and how their input has directly impacted the evolution of NextOcean services. So thanks so much, Peter. Hand over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, I'll be following on from Nuno's nice presentation about the alpha users and talk about the beta users. So this is what I'll be telling you. What are beta users, although Nuno's given you a pretty good idea already, and how we've engaged with those users over the 3 years of the project. We've interviewed them, and we'll highlight some of the successful outcomes of that co-design and engagement process. So firstly, what are beta users? And yeah, I'll use this diagram. So we've got the development of the services going on here, and the alpha testing is by nominated end users within the project, so that when things get released through the door, that they're more suitable for application for their chosen markets. And then when it gets through that door, then we have these very kind beta testers who are outside the project, so they can be honest and tell us what they really need and notice any things that can be improved. So we say that the beta user is someone that can have early access to the online store to test out our fisheries and aquaculture services, and then provide feedback to us that's extremely valuable. So we think that there's benefits of that, so that you can get that kind of early benefits and access to these novel services, and you can influence the design towards what you know to be areas that satellite data can really assist your business with. And along the way, you and your staff can be upskilled in the use of that satellite data, and gaining contacts, and both ways So for us to gain contacts with you for future projects and developments, and for you to gain contact with the developers and the providers of these services. And indeed, we offer discounts for beta users if they wish to become customers after that process. So during the project, our beta users have participated in workshops and meetings. They've given us that feedback, compared it with services they already use or they've heard about, and they've offered many suggestions to improve those services. And in some cases, that's led to real-life operational use cases. I'll mention a few of those. So next one is our engagement with those beta users, and that's been done through a process called co-design. I think most people on the call are familiar with the concept of co-design, where we develop the project and the services from an early stage. We don't wait until the end of the project to reach out to these important stakeholders. So we needed information to develop these scenarios. I won't go through all of these, but these 4 types of end user applications gave rise to these 6 services that are listed here. So there's fisheries services and there's aquaculture services, and through that process we've asked questions about how people still have problems that they need to solve that we might be able to assist with. They might have limitations with the services they already use. We can explain why we think we are doing a bit better and unique aspects of our services, and then we can gain requirements for extending our knowledge of what people need in different areas, both application areas and geographical areas. So this process actually started before then, but our second workshop was in Athens, where we collected user requirements that led into our user requirements document, and further co-design in Portugal last summer, and that allowed us to update our requirements. And then since then we've had one-to-one meetings, both in person at events such as the Oceanology International in London, and Zoom calls, one-to-one meetings. And so by the end of this project, we now are in a position where we've completed that process. And it was very entertaining and informative along the way. Here's just a snapshot of one of our events that was in Peniche in Portugal. And yeah, we got lots of engagement with some beta users and potential beta users during that meeting. So yeah, once we've discovered and met the beta users, then we've followed up with one-to-one meetings, and yeah, the one-to-one, the end users have come from different countries. So yeah, some from Portugal, Norway, UK, Germany, and this is an example of the schedule of meetings where we've talked to them about our different services that they're interested in giving feedback on. So here's some nice comments that we've received on the way to give you an idea of the beneficial two-way process. So yeah, one beta user was interested in what we can offer in predicting marine heat waves. Another one was aware that these services could be of interest to their government departments. and keen to try it out, keen to play with the store and experiment. And we recently had a showcase event, and it was pleasing that the beta users noticed that we have made considerable progress since the start of this NextOcean project, that the services have developed a lot in the direction of their user requirements. So some of our users have been able to develop case studies to apply demonstration data to real-world problems, and I've listed some of them here. For instance, assessing what productive fishing zones based on ocean fronts in Portugal, studying fishing activity indicators from AIS data, looking at certification, pollution from an aquaculture farm, how to track that, looking at marine heat waves, and quite a thorough analysis of illegal fishing around the Azores that was for our alpha user, but also potential beta users as well. Yeah, one of our beta users is involved in a fisheries organisation, so yeah, very keen to know what can be done with satellite data. So here's a few of our successful outcomes, and this shows where beta users have helped us evolve and improve the services. So this was our monitoring of aquaculture structures service, where you can see in the red polygons automatic identification of fish farms from radar data, and one of our end users identified that there was a need for more statistics. So we added that in. So now the layer tells you how many fish cages there are and the minimum maximum size, and yeah, that gives you an idea of how we've adapted to those user requirements and provided additional information. And the second one was on the fisheries monitoring for illegal fishing, where we had previously this visualization of detected vessels from satellite as these polygon shapes given as a layer in Google Earth. And through conversations with our end users, one adaptation was to a request for the AIS information to be displayed to allow potential coast guards and enforcers to see the direction that the boats were heading and also their speed, and we managed to do that using a color scale, so that the greener boat shapes here were going faster, and then they slowed down outside the harbour waiting for their mooring, and the heading is shown by the arrowhead. So this allows a lot of interpretation to be done about potential fishing behaviour and potential suspicious behaviour, like vessels waiting around, not going very fast, waiting for a drug smuggling, that kind of thing. Also, people interested in transshipment, where one vessel moors up in the ocean next to another vessel, where illegal fish quotas can be passed on, or other illegal cargo can be passed on. So we added in these thumbnails of data, so that it's not just the polygons now, like on here, that are displayed, but actually the underlying data, so that a human can interpret in more detail the shape of the radar signal, and that might lead to two vessels being apparent rather than just one. while we also look for machine learning ways to do that detection automatically. And another request from an end user was for a heat map of suspicious vessels over a 6-month period. So we're able to process all of the data, and in this example, it's around the Azores, where the brighter colours show that there were more vessels that weren't identifying themselves correctly using the AIS communication system. This would be very helpful for a Coast Guard to plan their policing of waters and also checking infringements on no-take areas and marine protected areas. So, to conclude my run through of our beta user case studies, I've given you an idea about some of our beta users and how we've interviewed them, and we have some successful outcomes that have improved our service so that we're now in an even better position to provide a really valuable service from satellite data for both fisheries and aquaculture. So thanks very much.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, unfortunately, Pedro can't be with us today. He ran the 2 hackathons that we've held recently. These were really great opportunities to get to interact with users using actually the services and to find like real world problems what they had when using it. So it was really helpful us to be able to develop the services further. Thankfully, Nuno's volunteered to step in and present the results of the hackathon on behalf of Pedro. Thanks so much, Nuno.
Welcome. I hope I can represent well the really great work that Pedro did on both hackathons, and all the team from the P6, of course. I'll share the screen. So this is a bit to go over main results of the 2 hackathons that were developed within NextOcean. So the hackathons were the way we found to engage with students that are working in oceanography or other related subjects that could have an interest in aquaculture, could have an interest in fisheries, and really see how easy the services were to use. How can they interpret those services? How can they use it to solve some challenges that might be of interest for them? So this were organized in 2 different hackathons. So there were 2 editions, one running from the 13th to the 17th of November 2023, and another one that ran just now from the 22nd to the 26th of April. It included bachelor and master students from geospatial engineering, biology, aquaculture, and oceanography. The objective was to gather this feedback on the usability of the NextOcean's store and the usefulness of the provided services, and also to raise awareness of the students to the existence of these services, because in their professional life, this might be of use, or even they want to be involved in the development of some of these services. So both this provision of feedback, but also this awareness that we gained with the hackathons were really, really useful throughout the project, and especially in the later part of the project, as you can see there. So we go to hackathon 1. Pedro passed me a lot of results within hackathon 1. I'll try to summarize it a bit, but I have a lot of more information if you find it interesting. So we have 8 participants split into 3 groups to address 3 different challenges from the 5 proposed. We had like 5 proposed, and only 3 were addressed by the groups that were included in the hackathon. We had then a classification system. This is to basically to then derive a winner of the hackathon, the person that best, or the person or the group that best answered the challenges that were put before them. And then this exercise was run through an entire week. So in the first day of the week, we presented the challenges. We then let the groups to organize and to provide all the work, all the activities on the different challenges, and then at the end of the week, they presented their results. Okay. So I'm gonna what I have here are highlights of one of the teams and how they solved some of the challenges, what they presented as results for some of the challenges. This is for you to gain a bit of a perspective on how they foresaw, how they saw the NextOcean services and how they engaged with them. So challenge one was all about the fishing footprint service, one of the services that we have for the fishing activity indicators. And we were trying to understand if they could give us some insights on how is the fishing activity within the Portuguese marine protected areas using that service. And so basically this team, I focus here on team 2. We have results for and slides for all the others, but I'll focus now on team 2. We had a request for the fishing footprint on the continental Portugal, a request that ran through an entire month within August, so the 31st of August 2018, and basically with that they got the results of the fishing footprint associated with that month for the Portuguese coast. So basically it gave them an idea of the intensity of fishing activities during that specific month. So they were able to extract that information and work with it, superimpose it with marine protected areas information, look into, and that was an interesting perspective, different flags, because the fishing footprint allows you to choose different vessel flags, basically. And so they were subsetting this to understand the fishing activity of flags that had, for instance, the Spanish flag, which are boats that are typically very active in the Portuguese coast. So they did all this work of segmenting the problem, the very generic problem that we gave them, to provide some really good answers and some really good insights. In challenge 3, we were interested in being able to characterize the fishing areas and understanding where fishing might be more interesting for fishing vessels. So in this case, the results they got were for a specific day in July 2018, 12th of July 2018. And then they understood a bit the logic of how to use this service together with the fishing footprint. And they understood that if they have the fishing footprint and they have the cretaceous fishing areas, they can understand if the areas that we identified as potentially being more attractive for fisheries are that's indeed confirmed by the fishing activity that took place during that time period. So this is the idea that was behind the reasoning. So it was interesting to see that they could put that together and to gain more insight on how reliable the cretaceous fishing areas service are. Then last challenge was on what information can we get from the fisheries monitoring and surveillance, and they were quite active also on this one, and they provided for different dates. They asked for they requested the vessel detection service for these different dates and analyzed it. And so it is very interesting also to see how they were able to dig in deep into the information content of the FMS that has different layers of information that were built during the project and evolved during the project, and they were able to navigate through it quite nicely. And I just give you like this is just for you to see the bit of work that we did with them. So then we look at the challenges, we analyzed them, we provided them with the scores, and then we finally got the classification from those exercises. Overall, the feedback that we got from the student presentations: NextOcean design intent is good. Sometimes services not keep with demand, fails in service requests. So at this time, and because of the input that we got during the hackathon, we were able to address some of the issues related with the reliability of the online store and to improve on that. They also provide some really good insight on the different functional areas of the store. And they requested more information on the website features in the store itself. So this helps us evolve in many different ways. So these are some of the highlights. And then we went to Hackathon 2, where we had a lower participation. We had less time to disseminate this into our networks, and this had as a consequence the fact that we only had 3 participants in the second hackathon. And then basically the same setup. They could pick 3 challenges from the 5 proposed, and then they would be given out the classification. We had less time to. This was just last week, so we didn't have time to really provide as in-depth slides as the ones that Pedro compiled for the first hackathon. The hackathon challenges are these ones. So basically, we give them different use cases that I think relate also with the ones that Peter presented. Sorry. Very sorry. And we got some really nice feedback also. This is still being analyzed a bit. So this is last week. There was also a holiday in Portugal, so we had less time to work on this. So the experience was a bit complicated considering having to work independently and alone. So they didn't have the possibility to group up, and that's always a bit more complicated to do the analysis. They thought that the exercise would be more interesting in the face-to-face format, which is indeed something that because of the limitations of the online interaction. It's relatively simple to carry out the exercises. The services in the project itself are quite appealing. That's a very good output for us. All the outputs are good, but this is particularly satisfying. Waiting time for the products and the user didn't know when it would get the result. That was something that we got also from beta users, if I'm not mistaken. So information on the evolution of the service and how long it would take to deliver them would be appreciated. We're trying to improve on that by indirectly giving them benchmarks for service delivery. For each service we'll be given a benchmark on how long typically it will take to deliver. And then hopefully in the future we can evolve this to have more information on that. Biggest difficulty was to process the data in QGIS. I think that's also good on their side. They need that experience. I think that interaction with geographic information systems is important for their work. Then when choosing the time of interest, the red asterisk appears, which persists even after filling in the information. So that's an error glitch that we need to correct. Regarding the area where the service is available, when there's no drawing on the map, it's not clear that the service has global coverage. So it's not clear that it's an interface question problem. For FFI, the AOI input is a point, but once defined, the double string appears, which gives the impression that can be edited to change the point, which is not possible. Okay, the improvements that they identified that could drive the evolution then of the online store. FFI did not work on visualization on the geo portal, and within its district model, the particles passed over a marine structure not mapped in the service. And for marine heat waves, it was initially tested in a very small area, resulting in white squares. There was also some difficulty transferring these results to QGIS. So we had some good pointers that we're now going to redirect to either the online store team or the service teams to work and evolve the services in the online store a bit. Overall, students are this encompasses both hackathons. Students are very pleased to participate, demonstrating great initiative and willingness to keep trying the services, even if they fail or taking very long to see the results. They were quite persistent in that, and they understood their role as, let's say, beta testers of the online store. It was a very useful exercise for NextOcean, a lot of valuable feedback. Stress tests for the processing services performance, and this helped us evolve. Post-processing in GIS presents some difficulties and limitation in the participation because we need a bit more time to disseminate this and to work with the professors with the teachers to be able to really get some more participants in the hackathons. The first one was we had that we got good results. This last one was a bit more tight, and therefore we didn't get as many participants. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks ever so much, Peter and Nuno, for your really interesting presentations. There'll be one more webinar in the Next Ocean series, and this will be about how we'll continue Next Ocean past the end of the EU project. So look out for advertisements for that, and we'll hopefully see you there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dawn.